All right, we are live. I'm gonna wait till like at least 5 to 10 people get in here. How are you today, Brad? I'm sorry. I like literally didn't ask you.
I'm doing good. I was telling you before we went live, but I just moved, so I'm like covered in boxes. This is like the one corner of my new office in my apartment that's not covered in boxes. So,
Look at you, an office in your apartment.
oh, I mean
Wow.
that's like overselling it. It's a den. It's a one
I
bedroom
no,
apartment.
I literally aspire to be you. I want an office.
So, I mean, it's just nice that it worked out like that. It's the price of a one bedroom, but it has a little extra room that I'm just turning into an office because I work remote. So.
Okay. How's you and your boyfriend? I don't like I feel like I don't even hear
Good.
about
So
that.
we just moved. That's the thing. We moved in together. That's the tea. I don't think anyone knows that actually. Just your
What
audience.
the fuck? Why
Yeah,
was that not in your newsletter, Brad? Why was this not in your podcast? I feel like I stay up to date with on you enough.
I honestly haven't done. I guess I've done less personal updates because like I got some fucked up shit, like in real life from people hating on me, and so I've tried to kind of like I don't know, play it a little more low key with the personal updates. Because like
I
I'm such an
agree.
open book, like I'm just like,
Yeah.
okay, whatever. I'll tell whatever. But my boyfriend doesn't necessarily have the same comfort level with being public about everything about his life because
Uh,
unlike me, he's not an attention whore. Um,
uh,
and then also too, it's like the more you do that, the more ammo people have to like, I don't know, go
I
after
found
you.
that. I found that oversharing often backfires on me. Also,
Listen, has this ever happened to you? I've had this happen to me where someone comes up to me and like, listen, I am not at all big. This is nothing, not a flex, nothing, not a humble brag. But I've had people come up to me and be like, oh, hey, Brad, I recognize you from Twitter. And then in my head, I'm like, shit, this is about to go one of two ways.
do you think people are gonna jump you because they recognize you
Either,
on Twitter?
I've had people say to my face, they think I should kill myself or like, you're a disgrace. Like,
To who?
but
To like gay people or to
yeah,
conservatives? I
mostly
feel like it goes
whiny
both
white
ways with
liberal
you.
gay. But also others, then it's like, oh, I love your stuff, or yeah, I'm a big fan, or oh, I agree with everything. Um, yeah, I don't know.
Interesting. I do want to say I agree with the naturalist capitalist comment. You are very wrong on tanks. I 100% support civilian owned tanks. That's my one beef with you, actually. I really don't think I disagree with you on much else besides the food takes. But this is like your one policy take. I'm just like, wow, Brad, you're kind of a status for that.
I
I
kind of
also
so the thing
agree
is, it kind of
with
started out as like just something I said, and then everyone got so triggered by it that I doubled down on it.
it was because it was like your one bad take ever. Like
Well,
that's
I have a lot of bad takes, depending
I
on who
think
you
you really
ask.
outdid yourself. I also agree with this comment. Brad is so hot. 100% agree. Brad is pretty hot. Um,
That's true. I should tweet this out. That's unrelated. How do I do that?
tweet the link to this.
Yeah.
There's if you go to like the top right hand corner, there's like a little thing that says view on YouTube. Maybe that's just on my end. I don't really know. I tweeted the link, so you could just go to my page and retweet
Oh,
that.
I'll do that because I'm technologically illiterate.
That's kind of a mood.
Oh yeah, I'll just quote tweet this. Word.
Thank you.
We're gonna talk about skim milk, huh?
We'll save the best topics for last. We'll talk about skim milk later. I do want to ask you about your Senate testimony because that was like the most recent thing that I found like the most interesting that you've done. I don't know how you felt about like would you say like I was very impressed. I was very impressed. I watched the clip. I thought you did a good job. What is your take on that?
I It was really an honor. So basically, I just it came out of nowhere, to be honest. But for people that don't know, I testified at a Senate Small Business Committee hearing about lockdowns and the unintended consequences they've had in terms of suicide and drug overdoses, and actually child suicide. There's been a huge rise in that
Mm.
across the globe. And a bunch of other things too. And then also about the economic ramifications of like the multi-trillion spending packages and some of these programs and so I testified all that. Basically what happened is I've been reporting on this stuff and writing about it in my columns and my fee.org, like writing, and Senator Rand Paul, basically had read a lot of my writing, and so he just
I would
decided that he
flip
wanted
out if Senator Rand Paul was reading my shit. I would flip out.
He
That
probably,
is
I don't
awesome.
know. A lot of these people are way more online than you think, or
Really?
they have staffers who are really online who send them things. Like Rand doesn't use Twitter. His Twitter's not actually him. But it's
Really?
like, yeah,
His
no,
tweets are pretty fire though.
right. But that's because I know his staffers, and his staffers run it, but they
Did
like
it? Oh
show it to
wow.
him and obviously work with him. But he's not actually scrolling through Twitter at night. Like, but he'd read a lot of my articles, so when they were doing this hearing and they wanted to find someone to testify, they just invited me, and I was like, wow, that's an honor. And then I just decided that I would, if I was going to do it, I might as well go ham. So I went off in my opening statement, and I
You
was
did go
hoping that.
off.
So here's the thing: the when you do Senate testimony, and I learned this not because I know this or something, but just because I talked to a couple people who I know who did it to get like the down low on it before I went and did it. And one of two things happens: either the other side's senators totally ignore you and barely acknowledge your presence at the hearing,
Really?
or they go for your throat and they like, you've seen the clips, right, of like the Q&As and the back and forth.
Yeah.
So one of those two things. And in my case, on that there was Cory Booker and there was Mazie Hirono. Those two are quite
They're a little problematic.
they're quite woke, quite left wing, and also very prone to like drama. And like, so I was kind of hoping Cory Booker would like come for my throat and I could have a
Yeah, I
viral
feel
back
like he
and
would
forth
call you
with
like a
him.
white supremacist or some shit, like
Ugh.
completely unrelated.
But they just ignored me. So it was just basically my opening statement, and then all the Republican senators were asking me questions, and then the Democrat senators were asking their witnesses questions. It was actually sad. Like, I'm really glad I did it. It was a great opportunity, and I'm like thankful to them. But it actually made me even more depressed about the absolute state of Congress.
Mm.
They basically had two parallel hearings going on at the same time in the same
So
place.
The Republicans didn't ask their witnesses any questions either.
No,
Mm.
it's literally like, and at some of the more high profile ones, like the confirmation hearings or that kind of thing, there's more engagement. But a lot of these, it's just like two complete separate, doing their own thing, no conversation, no debate, no dialogue. So it's kind of depressing. It's a lot of it's for show. Like a lot of the senators, here's the other tea that I didn't realize: the senators don't even stay in the hearing. They come in, do their part, and then leave.
They don't even listen to anybody else.
No, they come in, they do their
Wow.
5 minute questioning, get the camera on them, get the clip they can tweet out, and then they peace out.
I don't know why I'm acting so shocked. I guess I even trusted the government way too much than I did, which was not a high amount at all. I just assumed that they would at least listen to the other side. I mean, I know they're not asking questions, but at least have the courtesy to sit there and pretend to, like you fucking care.
It was so
Um,
funny because some of the senators were on Zoom and like they would sit down and so one of the senators, I don't even remember if it was Democrat or Republican because they're all like this. Um, though the main ranking member, who's Senator Paul, was there the whole time, and then the Democrat Ben Cardin, I think, he was there the whole time as well,
mhm,
because they like run the hearing. But the
okay.
other ones would just come in and out, and some of the ones on Zoom, it was so funny. They'd sit down in the chair and they'd do their part, and at the beginning they'd try to say, "Oh, this has been a great conversation. Really
But they
appreciate the
weren't fucking
dialogue
there.
here." And it's like, sir, the camera was on when you sat down.
Oh my God, that is so fake. Let me catch up on some of the comments. Thank you for the super chat too. Followed you here from Twitter and just want to show some love and support. I appreciate you. I love you. Eli asks, what are the best trackers for suicides of all ages during lockdowns? Yeah, what do you use like as a source?
So it's really hard to have a specific source in terms of like one data set. One thing that I wrote about a lot was basically the AP, the Associated Press, did a super in-depth interview with a bunch of doctors from across the world who are pediatric psychiatrists who were
Mm,
talking about huge spikes in emergency mental health visits and suicide attempts among teenagers and they were all basically saying this is horrible. We've never seen anything like this before. It
Mm.
is anecdotal, but it's kind of across the board what everyone's saying. There are some CDC data that suggests that suicides did not actually increase during the pandemic last year.
Okay.
But the data are like super preliminary. It takes years to get full suicide data. And what we do know for a fact is that depression and anxiety skyrocketed,
Mm.
according to polls and surveys of people. And so the thing about the suicide and the mental health consequences of all the lockdowns is it's not actually something you're going to see all right now. A lot of it's going to
Mm-hmm.
play out over time, right? Because if somebody gets depression now or an anxiety disorder now, it may result in suicide years from now. So it's not all just right now. But we also have seen really, really tragic like spikes in overdose deaths, and a lot of those are related to mental health. So the whole mental health picture is really cloudy when it comes to the data because it takes years to get good data. But basically, all the indicators that we have and just common sense point to the fact that this isolation has really hurt people.
Yeah, I feel like whenever I saw you post about this or anyone else post about this, like especially adolescent suicide spiking, I feel like I never really needed to ask for a source because I felt like it was just kind of common sense. Like if you keep kids away from their friends, if you keep kids inside all day, they can't play sports, they can't go out, go to school and everything. I just feel like it's common sense that it would create some mental health issues. And that's actually a good point you brought up, saying that mental health is gradual. We're not going to see people suddenly commit suicide day one of lockdown, but if they develop issues surrounding just being lonely or, lowered self-esteem or just feeling just alone in their depression or anxiety, I mean, we could see it spike over the next year or so, I think.
Yeah, for sure. And it's also not the only thing. The thing is, lockdowns were supposed to mitigate COVID. And whether they actually did that is actually very unclear from data.
Mm-hmm.
Because some places that had super strict lockdowns, like New York and New Jersey and California and Massachusetts, have really horrible numbers, actually. And then some places like Georgia and Florida that really cut all the lockdowns a long time ago, and now Texas even. They've done a lot better relative. So it's like lockdowns are not at all clear to work, but the cost, it's like a lot of times people, whether it's Fauci or Democrats or whatever, they're saying, oh, we have to lock down because better safe than sorry, or if it saves even one life. But that is not like an actually serious or competent way to look at public policy, because public policy is always all about costs and benefits, trade-offs. And even if lockdowns do, and that's my dog, I'm just little Reggie.
Oh, cute.
Oh, yeah, I can bring him up to say hi.
Yes.
Oh, Reggie, say hi to YouTube.
Hi. Oh my God, I love dogs.
He's a grouchy old man. Don't mind him.
Really? How old is he?
We don't really know because he's a rescue, but he's around
Oh.
8. But so anyway,
Okay.
it's about the costs and the benefits. And the benefits of lockdowns, if there were any, maybe there were some, but they're very murky and unclear. But the costs, I mean, the costs are so enormous. The increased unemployment, the mental health, the drug overdoses, the increased obesity and weight gain of lockdowns is actually
I can
huge.
relate.
I think we can all relate, right? But that's the thing, though, is it actually makes COVID more deadly. So
Mm-hmm.
it's so counterproductive in so many ways. But that's the thing that's really frustrated me, is about the people that support lockdowns or locking down everything don't even seem to try to grapple with the other side of the equation.
Mm-mm. Not at all. I feel like they're very absolutist about it. It's like you either lock down or you want your grandma to die, and there's no in between. There's nothing we can do to remedy the side effects of lockdown. Another relevant comment. Thank you again for the super chat. My little brother went into serious downward spiral after being isolated from his school friends. Years of building him up went down the drain. I could totally see that. I also have a little brother. He's 14. He spent his last year of middle school alone in his room on Zoom. Now he's about to go into his first year of high school, and they still haven't announced if it's in person yet. And I'm really scared if he spends his first year in high school alone in his room on Zoom.
That's crazy, because
And
it
he's like
is
a
safe.
really, yeah, he's
It's
a really
safe to have
quiet kid, and
in-person
I can't
school.
even get it out of him. but I just feel like it can't be great.
No,
It
and
can't be great alone if
what's
you're
funny too
14.
is that the people who support lockdowns, not always, but oftentimes are progressives or woke people or like Democrats, liberal Democrats, not always to be clear, but oftentimes they are. But when you look at the school closures, that part of the lockdowns, that has created a huge gap in student learning. But that gap in student learning is not equal for everybody. Wealthy kids and white kids, statistically, um, obviously every individual case is different. Some might be far behind, but statistically have had way fewer missed education gains than minorities and poorer people, many of whom who just totally fell through the cracks through all of this. So the same people that want justice and equality supposedly and all this are supporting these crazy government lockdowns on schools that are contributing to the same gaps that they use as proof of why their policies are needed.
It's really ridiculous. It's like they didn't even take into account that people who are like single parents, working parents, they now have to stay home and watch their elementary school kids on Zoom all day when they were counting on that basically free childcare, free breakfast and lunch at school. Now they have to account that into their monthly budget. I mean, it's such a crazy and sudden workload to drop on parents with like very, very little notice. And there's certain counties and states I know they do like, half the week on, half the week off. That's even more ridiculous to me because that just goes to show it's not really stopping COVID. It's just to make people feel better. I mean, are you really going to make COVID if you only go 3 days out of the week than 2 days out of the week? I,
Oh,
I,
I'm so
I
sick
don't
of
understand the logic.
theater stuff. Like, I'm I stopped wearing the mask outdoors a long time ago. That's not how COVID is spread. When we go inside a restaurant or we go inside a grocery store, I'll wear the mask. I think it probably helps. It's the rules of the business, whatever.
Okay, Lib.
But yeah, okay, whatever. But walking around outside by yourself wearing a mask is just a signal of conformity. It's just security theater. COVID is spread through several minutes of face to face interaction indoors or in a tight setting. Walking by someone on the street for 2 seconds without a mask is not how you get COVID. That's just anti science. It's crazy to me because the same people that always say, listen to the science or the science or the science, the experts, are doing the most bizarre shit. Like they're riding a bike wearing a mask alone.
Don't
And
even
I'm
get
like,
me
that's just
started.
it's like Joe Biden was on a Zoom call with like 24 world leaders and had
The
a mask
only
on.
one with a
He was the
mask.
only one because it's Zoom, Joe. You're fully vaccinated and it's Zoom. Like
I want to know which one of his staffers is going to get fired for telling him to wear a mask. They were probably like, Joe, everyone's going to wear a mask. And he logs on and nobody's fucking wearing a mask.
It's funny too because they think, I mean, it's funny, but it's kind of insulting, TBH, because they're like, they think that this is going to show people, like model by example. But I just find it condescending. I'm like, you think I'm that stupid that you, a fully vaccinated person, wearing a mask on a Zoom call, I'm not going to be like, he thinks I'm that dumb that I need.
People are that dumb, though. I
I mean,
think
I might be, but most people.
no, you're not. But people really are that dumb. Another super chat. Thank you so much, T. I really appreciate you. I love you. He was adopted out of foster care and 6 months into lockdown. He had the same traumatized look as when I first met him. That's sad. That makes me think about how children are faring who may be in the foster care system, the adoption system. That really sucks. Yep. POC kids, people of color kids. That's kind of a weird. People of color kids, particularly Black and Latino, have done much worse academically. This is especially true in the Bay Area, where they tried to rename Abraham Lincoln. Is that like a high school that they're trying to rename or something? That
Probably
sounds like
because they like
that
to
sounds like
focus
some
on
woke
that stuff,
bullshit. Yeah,
like
that sounds
rather
like
than
some woke bullshit.
the actual issues. Like the college I went to, they tried to rename the town because the town was like Amherst in Massachusetts is named after some like British lord, and they said it was colonialism. And I'm like, y'all don't want to address any actual real problems that affect people. You want to rename a town?
That's mad funny. Like they're paying people to do that shit though. So Brad Polumbo's infrastructure. What does this meme from? Who started saying that everything is infrastructure? Who was
Well,
that?
Joe
Because
Biden, he's the
that was
one
him. He started
because
that.
he put out his infrastructure plan, and I wrote about this actually. and they just decided that anything they want or anything they like and want to spend trillions on, just slap an infrastructure label
That's
on that bad
infrastructure.
boy. So their infrastructure bill has like $20 billion for racial environmental justice. And it
What is
has like
that?
all sorts of woke stuff in this infrastructure bill. It has like money for community colleges, money for public schools, free daycare, like all sorts of things that are not transportation infrastructure are just in this bill to the point of absurdity. Like I'd have to point out I'd have to pull up the actual list that I reported, but like less than half of the money in the bill actually goes to infrastructure. And
Interest.
they're just counting on Americans not actually reading. And you know what? They're probably right.
Nobody reads that shit, and nobody cares. And I don't think half of the country knows the definition of infrastructure anyway, so they can really get away with anything.
Yeah, it's
They
sad.
wear the mask as a status thing. They warn us that they don't wear a mask to feel bad about ourselves. Yeah, I feel like that there's some truth to that. I'm really struggling to understand the logic of Biden wearing the mask on Zoom. They're like, what was I know he didn't make the decision himself. I understand he doesn't have the mental capacity to. But which one of his staffers said that, and what was their reasoning? Like,
The
did they think it would
reasoning
look
might have
good?
been that there were other people in the room with him where he was zooming.
But he's vaccinated. Oh, wait, right. You can still get COVID
You
if you
can't.
are vaccinated.
This is crazy because like the mask hawks and the like people are actually the real anti-vaxxers. Like you cannot spread COVID. Barely tiny risk of it from all the data that we have if you've been vaccinated. The vaccines work. They're actually really good from all the data. But the people who are like, oh yeah, you got the vaccine, that's amazing, everyone has to get a vaccine, it's so great, we're going to force everyone to do it and give you a passport, but also you still have to wear a mask, you still have to social distance, you still can't breathe on each other, or a Karen will come yell at you on the sidewalk. It's like that's you're basically anti-vax at that point. Like Dr. Fauci has unfortunately become one of the main anti-vax sentiment purveyors in the conversation, not because he's saying vaccines don't work or they're dangerous, but because he's just making it sound like vaccines do nothing, because even when you get the vaccine, you can't do anything differently, basically. And the government, the CDC and the FDA, they really botched the Johnson and Johnson thing really bad.
So what the fuck happened with that? So Johnson was the one that was just one shot, right? That
Yeah.
wasn't two
So,
shots, and then like 6 women got like blood clots from it.
but like 6 out of 6.5 million, right?
Okay.
That's like not abnormal. That's like less odds than you'll be struck by lightning tomorrow. Like, so then they gave a big pause on it, said, oh no, we got to check this out, guys. Oh, and they stopped the vaccination of it. So they slowed this whole thing out. And the Johnson and Johnson one is important because it's a one shot and the others require 2. So for like homeless people or other people where it's really hard to get them 2 appointments, the Johnson and Johnson is really important. They stopped it, and now like a week later, they've said, okay, yeah, it can resume. So it's like, what was all that for? It was just alarmist, overcautious, bureaucratic bullshit, but they did it because that's how the government works. They're incentivized to take no risks, and they have no profit motive. They have no incentive to actually do anything. You know what the most secure industry to be working during COVID was? Government. None of them got furloughed. None of them had
They were not getting laid off.
none of them had pay cuts.
Interesting point. Yeah, that shit doesn't affect them. And I just think it's so funny how Fauci and everyone's saying that the vaccine doesn't work. It won't stop you from getting it. It won't stop you from being hospitalized with it. You still have to wear a mask. When data shows that, I mean, whatever you believe, anti-vaxxer, pro-vaxxer, it's not going to make you get COVID more. It's not going to make you a magnet for COVID. I feel like, and tell me your opinion on this, but I feel like the fact that they're saying that we still have to social distance, still have to shut down our businesses, still having to wear masks post-vaccination, is that not just them trying to get more control? And like, what's the purpose of a vaccine passport if it doesn't even work? If you still have to wear a mask everywhere, like none of this shit makes sense. Clearly, none of this shit makes sense.
Yeah. So I guess, I mean, there's this idea in economics. There's this book, Crisis in Leviathan, but basically the government always tries to use emergencies to grab more power for itself, and then it tries like a death grip not to relinquish them. So we saw this to some extent with 9/11 in the Patriot Act in like mass surveillance, and now I think we're seeing that on steroids with COVID, where they've gotten trillions of dollars more to spend, massive expansions of their regulatory power. I mean, some of these governors are just drunk on power. I mean, to be Gretchen Whitmer, she went from not being that important to be declaring herself basically queen of Michigan at one point.
Dog.
And I mean, people like Fauci too. He is now a media celebrity, and he's really addicted to the limelight, and he's one of the
For
most famous
sure.
people in America. And guess what? When the pandemic ends, so does his relevancy. And I'm not
People eat
saying
that shit up though. Have you seen those I don't know what they're called, but like those Catholic candles that people pray with? I've seen one with Fauci's face on it. And like,
it's a
all those
cult.
like yeah, all those like reply guys like Brooklyn Dad and all these like big liberal ass accounts, they're all like pushing this like Fauci grift gear, like t-shirts with
Also, there's
Fauci's
like a
face on it
thirst
and shit.
culture for him. There's like gays will be like Daddy Fauci. Women will like thirst for him. It's
It's like
become
how
a
people say,
thing.
it's like how black people say Auntie Kamala. Shut the fuck up. She's not your fucking auntie. She probably arrested your fucking uncle for having an
You
ape
probably
on him.
arrested your auntie.
Yeah, she's not your fucking auntie. Shout out blue collar intellectual. Julian's running for Congress. Julian, put your campaign website in here. I'll pin it in the chat. Thank you for the super chat. Um, Matthew said, I had an older guy shout at me the other day for not getting vaxxed. His reason the vaccine is only 95% effective, so I was still risking his health. What?
If he's had it, then he's fine.
I don't understand why everything is for somebody else. Wear a mask or you support your grandma dying. Social
That's the
distance or
thing.
you want to kill my grandpa.
So
Get a
about the
vaccine.
vaccine,
Like,
the great thing about the vaccine is that it protects you. Even if like, so I got the first one, I'm going to get the second one in a couple of weeks, and then when it's finally all like complete, if I hang out with you and you haven't been vaccinated, well, I'm protected from that. So why do I really care? Obviously it's not 100% effective, but nothing is, and it's like 95 to 99% effective. So I think it becomes about control and conformity at that point.
I don't like how the government, the media, everybody just seems to be pushing this narrative that we should be trusting other people with our safety, our security, our health. Why should I have to rely on somebody wearing a mask to keep me safe? If I want to keep myself safe, I'll wear a mask. The vast majority of people in the United States don't have any medical condition that stops them from wearing a mask. I understand that there are some people who are compromised so they can't get a vaccine. So I do understand there are exceptions to the rule, but I just don't understand them pushing this narrative like you need to do this for everybody else's health and everybody else will do this to protect your health. But I think it's human nature. People really don't care as much about other people's health as the government wants everyone to believe.
Right. And it's also a matter of like personal responsibility. It's like it's your job to take care of yourself, with exceptions for like disabled people and for all sorts of exceptions. But if you're an adult, right, feeding yourself, taking care of yourself, keeping yourself safe, healthy, the basics, getting a job, paying your own bills, these are things that it's reasonable to expect people to do on their own. And obviously, a transmissible disease is an exception to that, but not once you can get vaccinated. My opinion on all of this is that even if you supported restrictions and lockdowns and all this government stuff, once everybody who has had a vaccine, who wants a vaccine, has had one, let her rip. Anyone
Let
who
it,
gets sick or dies at that point is their choice.
period.
I guess that's a hot take, but it's like everybody should be able to make their own risk calculation. Like, you know what your personal situation better than anyone else does. So leave it up to individuals. And then the whole thing with the pandemic that justified some government mandates or restrictions to many people is the idea of an externality, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
if I in a pandemic, I impose costs on you by going about my life potentially. But once
Mm-hmm.
anyone who wants a vaccine can get one, that's no longer true. So the justification, even if you bought into it, for all of this stuff goes away.
Um, That's so true. And honestly, I've said it before. I'm not getting the vaccine. If I die, I promise you can tweet, I told you so. I won't be mad. I won't haunt you. I feel like I weighed the pros and cons to myself, and I've already had COVID. It was crazy because I've been on like literally like probably 20 to 25 flights in the last year since COVID started. And I've been to all the states that have little to no lockdowns. I was in Florida, I was in Texas, I was in Georgia, I was in Missouri. I only got COVID when I came home to Maryland, which has like some pretty fucking ridiculous restrictions. And I got over it. I had a loss of smell for like 2 weeks, and I was like, okay, well, I'm probably not going to die, so I'm fine. Thank you, Jeff Charles, for the super chat. Longtime friend of the show. Ask Brad how he managed to come up with such Hitlerian food takes. I honestly struggle to understand it myself. Brad, why do you have some Nazi fascist food takes? Please explain yourself. For $5, please explain yourself.
I just have to say that some people are just born with finer sensibilities and tastes.
You tweeted a picture of a banana dipped in ketchup like 3 days ago.
I'm just saying I would try it.
Are you trolling me right now? Would you really try a banana dipped in ketchup?
You're closed-minded. You don't.
We're not trying a banana dipped in ketchup.
I'll go get one right now and do it.
Go ahead, Brad. Go ahead. Go. Somebody drop a super chat if you want to see Brad eat a fucking banana dipped in ketchup. Somebody said I thought that was Steve-O at first. That's a horrible insult. I really wish I hadn't read that, and now I can't see it. Brad, you do kind of look like Steve-O a little bit.
Who is that?
Oh, I'm so glad you don't know. Never mind. Let me see. Both parties have renewed the Patriot Act every time it's about to expire. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. I agree. I just feel like it's like such a crazy thing how everyone is acting like that's not the case, because whenever I've said, hey, there have been Republicans who have had really shitty lockdown practices too, nobody wants to listen to me. I was tweeting about it today. I don't know if everyone is familiar with Shelley Luther. She was a state representative candidate in Texas last year. She unfortunately lost, but she basically had everything against her because she was a hair salon owner who was thrown in jail for 3 nights under Greg Abbott's business lockdown law because she decided to open the doors for her business as a hair salon owner. And then she ran for state representative. Then Greg Abbott threw millions, like Texas GOP and Greg Abbott threw like millions at her opponent. And I'm just like, people really act like the Republicans give a fuck about them. They really don't.
So I say the difference between the Republicans and the Democrats is that from a libertarian or right-wing perspective, there are some good Republicans. There are no good Democrats. But that doesn't change the fact, except Tulsi, she's still bae.
I was about to say she has a lot of points I disagree with her on, but she's really fine. And
she is.
Yeah, I really can't even front.
I geeked. I called like 7 people.
I needed Tulsi follow. I need a Tulsi follow.
But I'm saying
I was making like thirst TikToks for Tulsi like last week. I need her to notice me so bad.
The Republicans, it's like the establishment does suck, and lots of Republicans suck, but you have good Republicans, like whether it's like Rand Paul or Thomas Massey or Ron DeSantis or any of these people who actually will stand up for stuff. So that's why I have some hope for Republicans, but I agree.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
dog, you have 2 super chats to get you to do the banana and ketchup. Brad, get the ketchup banana. Greg said, go get the banana and ketchup. Go fucking get it.
I'm getting it.
All right, because I don't know how to refund through YouTube. You literally have to do it. While Brad is getting the ketchup and banana, let me read some of these comments. Let me start up here. Alvin said, what's up, Alvin? He's from Twitter. There is no such thing as asymptomatic spread. Young people are not at risk from COVID. Are we arguing, guys? Don't argue. I think we're on the same side. Oh, yeah, we are saying the same thing. Okay. Olivia's had the COVID infection. She still has the antibodies. Yeah, I had it in like January or February. It's only been a couple months, and I'm pretty sure you can have the antibodies for a couple months. Oh, my God.
What's up?
Oh, my God.
We've got the banana. We've got the ketchup.
What kind of ketchup you got?
It's like Harris Teeter off-brand.
Oh, sweet. I shop exclusively at Aldi, so that's
Oh,
fine.
so we just moved in next to a Whole Foods.
That's pretty bougie.
It's bougie, but it's also pricey. So
hold that shit in front of the camera. I want to see you putting it on. This is very sexually explicit. Should I make an OnlyFans and put this on it? I think people would pay to see this.
I'm not making an OnlyFans.
I might. I hope you guys are happy. I hope you guys get your money's worth. What does it taste like?
Yo, that's fucking good.
You're fucking lying. You are fucking lying.
It's actually good. It's like a sweet hot dog.
I have no response to that other than the fact that sounds like a sexual innuendo.
I fuck with it.
Give me a sweet hot dog. That sounds very questionable, Bradley. I don't know how I feel about that.
Let it not be said that I don't walk the walk though with my food takes.
I'm impressed. You stood by your word. I really thought you were trolling when you retweeted that on some. I literally was scrolling through my timeline on a casual day. I literally saw that and threw up in my mouth a little bit. I was like, who the fuck in their right mind is doing this? And I thought the original post was a troll, and then I scrolled down and was like, wait, I don't think this is like he actually took a bite out of this shit. Then I saw you retweeted it. I was like, this can't be real. This can't be real. So I guess I'm impressed. I don't know. I'm impressed and disappointed at the same time. We can go back to Tulsi though. Thank you, Brad, for proving yourself. I appreciate that. Tulsi's a shit. Tulsi's a great woman in politics. I love your articles on her, but don't ever say bae. Tulsi is bae.
Yeah,
okay?
Bae can be cringe, but in her case, accurate.
I love her. I love her little streak in her hair. I love that she plays ukulele.
Pantsuits. Oh my god.
I'm really jealous of her husband.
I would only be straight for one woman on this earth, and it's Tulsi Gabbard.
Shit, that was gonna be me. Okay, fuck you, Brad.
But I do love her.
Brad can't be trusted after eating that. I agree.
I could never be trusted.
I'm literally gonna I'm gonna post that clip on Twitter and tag Rand Paul. I'll see if you ever get invited back for a Senate testimony.
So Rand Paul, when he was on my podcast, which people should subscribe to, it's Breaking Boundaries, Apple Podcast.
It's good, guys. It's good.
So when Rand was on my podcast, I asked him for his food take. This man's went off for 3 minutes about how much he hates mayonnaise. And
mayonnaise is good.
He was telling him about how his wife always tries to sneak mayonnaise into food and hope he won't notice. And he always notices, and he hates mayonnaise, and he thinks there's a conspiracy by people that like mayonnaise to try to get people that don't like mayonnaise to eat it without realizing it.
Mayonnaise is good. I feel like when I think too much about it, I get grossed out because it's just like basically fucking like eggs.
Yeah,
so I get
think about it, but it's good. It's also good.
A lot of foods are like that. Watching him eat that just made me lose faith in humanity. Well, Jeff, I don't know. You encouraged this, so I really don't know what you want me to say. Matthew said Tulsi is awesome. Hope she runs as a Republican. I don't think that's ever going to happen. I know a lot of people are hopeful. I remember on last year on Kennedy, she said she would never do that, and then she said that like multiple times since then. But hey, maybe her opinion changed.
Like, she's not a conservative. She's just like a base.
She's pragmatic. I like her, but she's not a conservative.
She like supports socialist healthcare and like big government spending and lots of things. And she's pro-choice, and like she's not a conservative. She's just actually, I think, respects people and believes in free speech, and is really beautiful and cool, and also is a civil libertarian. So she's great on like the drug war and bring the troops home and all sorts of stuff. So I think she's awesome to work with. But yeah, she's not a Republican.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm still a huge fan anyways. I feel like you have to kind of accept some nuance, and this goes for everybody, but just like it's okay to be fans of people who are not on your side of the aisle, because literally when I posted my first TikTok about Tulsi, people were in the comments like, why are you praising this wolf in sheep's clothing? She's trying to infiltrate the right. I was like, I'm pretty sure she's made it clear she's not trying to infiltrate the
She
right.
ran for Democrat primary president.
Yeah, she's not on the
trying
right.
to infiltrate the right by running for the Democratic nomination.
Yeah, I really don't understand the logic here. Tiff, I'm so sorry. Tiff's a good follower from Twitter. I really clicked the link at the absolute worst time. I know it must have been really hard to come in and just see
imagine
Brad
opening
stuffing
this
his
up
face.
and seeing that.
Well, I guess Tiffany just did that. I'm so sorry, guys. Oh yeah, do pineapples go on pizza?
I like it.
I feel like I used to like it, and then I thought about it too much, and I was like, why am I putting entire chunks of fruit on pizza? And then I like immediately like stopped liking it. So also Greg said I had pineapple pizza with ham yesterday. I had a traumatic experience as a child with Hawaiian pizza. I almost choked to death on a piece of ham, and my dad had to turn me upside down, do the Heimlich maneuver on me. I was like 3 or 4 years old. So yeah, I'm pretty done with Hawaiian pizza.
Wow.
I
like
that's so random. I have so much PTSD from choking on that piece of ham. She's not a conservative, but she's a rational person that respects our people's views. Also, if Hillary and the DNC hate her, then Tulsi must be doing something right. I completely agree. I mean, she's not an establishment. Yeah, she's not an establishment Democrat. She actually respects people from the other side of the aisle. I'm just not going to pretend that she's a secret libertarian or a closeted conservative, or anything like that. Yeah, I mean, she did have some really, really shitty takes on firearms policy when she first ran. And then my friend Reed Coverdale, who's been on the show, he was like my 3rd or 4th episode. He actually worked very closely with her on her campaign. And he's an anarchist. He was libertarian, but he's a complete full anarchist at this point. And he got Tulsi to take off the part on her campaign website to ban assault rifles. But she did it very quietly. She didn't make an announcement like, "Oh, I'm actually against banning these guns." But he did get her to take it off her website. So that was a dub. But it's like she's still a Democrat on gun legislation. Maybe I'm a right-wing extremist, but I'm like one of those crazy ass libertarians that's like, you know, any infringement is bad. You know, bump stock bans are bad. Red flag laws are bad. Like, I really leave no room for just like, oh, well, she said she would only ban this gun and not, you know, high capacity assault rifles. Like, I really don't see that as like a major dub. You know what I'm saying?
No, yeah. I'm also always willing to work with anyone on either side on an issue where they advance liberty and they're principled. Like, if she disagrees with me at healthcare, but we both want to work together to end the war in Afghanistan, okay. Like, I can still like somebody and work with them on common ground, even if I think they're wrong about other things.
I've been really, really pissed about the Afghanistan thing lately. I don't know if you saw, but George Bush did like his first public interview in a few years. He was on the Today Show, I think. He was on there with Hoda. And he was basically they were like asking him, like, what is your opinion on Joe Biden's plan to leave Afghanistan? Even though it was Donald Trump's plan, we're not going to semantics here. But he says, well, I respect Joe a lot, but this will be really bad for the women in Afghanistan, that we're giving the women rights there. And that just infuriated me so much, because as if we're in fucking Afghanistan for women's rights in the first place. That's never been why we were there, ever.
And also, 20 years later, we've tried to nation build and it would collapse if we left for a second. So obviously we haven't been making real progress. I mean, we can't just police the world and fix all of its problems, and you just end up in these quagmires. I know, I think it's horrible. And I think somebody like Bush should, I mean, he seems like a nice guy in some ways. He paints pictures of veterans and goes around the country, but like,
I thought that was so weird when he started doing that. I don't know. It just seems like, he was just distracting from the fact that he's a war criminal.
The Iraq war, sit down. You're done with foreign policy debates. No one wants your take. No one needs this. Like, no one asked what you think.
Yeah, and I feel like if the United States and, you know, the military industrial complex was truly, truly interested in human rights and saving women, they would be in half the countries in the world. The entire developing world is horrible for women. Why are we specifically in Afghanistan?
The same like hawkish politicians who will say we need to keep troops in Afghanistan because of women's rights will gladly sell billions of dollars of weapons to Saudi Arabia. Like, they don't actually care about that for a second. It's just a pretense. I mean, I do think those things matter, but I just don't think military occupation of every country that has
We don't need to send
substandard.
people to die for it.
Right. And it's not even like it works. If it worked, then we wouldn't still be here 20 years later trying to fix the same problems.
Right. I mean, it's like when I ask somebody who is more on like the neoconservative side of things to explain it for me, they're like, "We need to be there." And I saw Dan Crenshaw; he posted this in November. We need to be there to prevent another 9/11. Oh, so we need to be in Afghanistan and Iraq to prevent the Saudis from committing another 9/11. Like, I'm very much confused here. How are we
Yeah.
preventing 9/11 by attacking two pretty much unrelated countries from the people who actually carried out
Right.
this attack?
Well, way back in like the planning of 9/11 happened in Afghanistan, in part, I believe. And
Right.
also, Al Qaeda was given shelter by the Taliban. But essentially, the idea that because terrorism could happen somewhere, we must keep troops and militarily occupy it has no limiting principle. By that logic, we should send troops into literally hundreds of countries and permanently occupy them. And the other thing too is like you can't disprove a hypothetical. So using that standard, we could literally never end the war in Afghanistan because always terrorism might happen if we leave somewhere. But also, it's dumb because it's like they're smart enough to know that it's not as if you take troops out of a country, we all of a sudden can't do anything there. Oh, if there's terrorists that crop up, I mean, that's what drone strikes are. Like, you don't need boots on the ground in a country. And it's like if terrorism cropped up, we could always do something still. But also, the idea that it will, I mean, we don't know that. The last time that what would happen, almost certainly, if we left Afghanistan, is that the Afghani government that we've tried to prop up would crumble immediately because the nation building has failed. And so the Taliban would resume control of most of the country. But the Taliban do not have transnational terroristic ambitions. What they did before was they harbored Al Qaeda. They're not going to do that again because last time they did that, we invaded their fucking country for 20 years. So they're not going to do that again. And if they do, I mean, there's things we can do. We can't just occupy every country forever. I think I'm surprised that Biden's actually doing this. I'm really surprised. But if
Me
he
too.
goes through with it, I always praise Trump for this, wanting to do it, but he didn't finish it. If Biden goes through, I'll give him a round of applause. I don't really care if you're a Democrat or Republican. I mean, if you're going to bring the troops home, and right now we have Americans dying every year in Afghanistan for no reason, for a lost cause, for a war that we should have ended 17 years ago. So I don't care if Sleepy Joe does it. I don't care if Kamala does it. I don't care if Trump does it. I don't care if President Tulsi Gabbard does it or President Bernie Sanders does it. I will applaud anyone who brings the troops home.
Please never say President Bernie Sanders ever again, but I 100% agree. And it really makes me mad because there are 18-year-old kids who weren't even born when 9/11 happened that are over there. Like, I'm 20 and I was 8 months old when 9/11 happened. I have no recollection of it, but I'm old enough to pick up a gun and go over there and kill some brown people because the government says so.
Also, yeah, we
Um,
have to talk about that side of it. Like, and I'm not saying this justifies it, right? It doesn't ever justify terrorism, but like when we drop drone strikes and kill people and kill terrorists, but also kill random civilians, or when we bomb cities or we have all this military involvement and we do collateral damage and kill civilians, a lot of the family members of those civilians will grow up hating the US. Some may become
Rightfully
terrorists.
so, to
Right.
some
And it's like,
degree.
I'm not saying I don't think terrorism against innocent people is never justified. Right. But like, we have to be smarter than that. And we have to know that us occupying a country for 20 years and destroying it is going to have blowback. So it's like, if you want to reduce terrorism, dropping more bombs isn't necessarily going to do that.
For sure. We have Miss Piggy Thoughts in the chat, aka Nicole. I've been over there. Hell knows Dan Crenshaw. She's a really cool female veteran. She's done a lot of deployments to the Middle East. Um, Another question. What are your thoughts on Puerto Rico becoming a state? Am I safe to assume you're against DC becoming a state? So, growing up in the DC area, it's always, I don't know why this is becoming a topic now because it's always been the buzz here. Like, if you're like from the area, you will see license plates from DC, taxation without representation. Like, people have been mad about it for as long as I can remember. But the thing is, and this is just my take, and anyone's free to disagree, but I think that DC is not a state because of how it began, how it was supposed to be kind of like a nonpartisan middle ground for representatives from the rest of the country to go and do their work in and not really worry about local politics there as they were working on politics back home. Now we have several million people living in DC and it's like 40% black, I think. So I understand why people are saying that, oh, it's racist if you're against DC statehood because you just don't want people to get two more Democratic senators. If DC was red, I would be against it too. I think we need
And
to
also,
stick with
if
the
it was
founders.
red, all those people would be against it.
Oh, for sure. I know they're not consistent on it all. I'm just trying to say, have a little nuance for it. If those people want representation and they want to vote on that, I would be happy. I would be thrilled, but I think it makes the most sense for those residential areas of DC to be reabsorbed into Maryland or Virginia. I don't think that DC needs to be a state at all.
So I completely agree with that. I think that I'm sympathetic to the idea that taxation without representation is unfair, but the appropriate answer then is to cede most of DC into Maryland or Virginia. And then
For
they can
sure.
have more people in Congress, they can have more congressmen, they can vote for Senate, that's fine, they can vote for president. The thing about DC is the Constitution specifically specifies that you have to have a federal district. So you couldn't get rid of it entirely if you wanted to. But the reason is actually important. It's partly because of what you said, but also because no one state should have power over the federal government. Like, say that Virginia, all of DC became Virginia, all of it, even including Congress. That would mean that
Oh, definitely not that. Definitely not that.
Congress's
Yeah.
police department could be withdrawn by the governor of Virginia if they don't do what he likes. Like making DC in terms of the actual capital and the center of the city where all the federal government is, making it a state gives one state huge leverage over the federal government. That's what the founders wanted to prevent. So I'm fine with taking all the residential areas and seeding them into Maryland or Virginia so they can have population representation. But I don't think that, I think it's not at all the case that there should be DC statehood. Puerto Rico, I'm actually fine with Puerto Rico statehood. They just got to fix their budget first. Wouldn't be okay with them becoming a state if that meant their massive budget crisis gets absorbed to everyone else. But if they can square that out on their own and then they want to become a state, I'm all for it.
This is one of those topics where I'm just going to shut the fuck up because I don't know enough about the Puerto Rico statehood debate. I don't even know. Like, what do Puerto Ricans want? Do they want it to be a state?
I don't know. They've had a bunch of referendums, but some of the referendums have been boycotted. I certainly don't think they should be made a state if they don't want to be. I don't know if they want to be or not, but if they want to be a state, I'm not against it. I also will say this, like, it's okay to factor in politics when you're deciding whether or not you support statehood, because historically states were always added in like one red and one blue at the same time to even it out, right? But it is very obvious that they're trying to cram more Democrats in the Senate. That's why they want to do this. And people like us don't want more Democrats in the Senate. It's not bad to say that that's part of why we don't support it, right? Because that's why they do support it. And with Puerto Rico, I'll say they think it would be a blue seat. I actually think you could get some based Hispanic.
Isn't what do they call it? Do they call it a governor or president of Puerto Rico? I don't know. Isn't she a Republican or a conservative?
Like, sort of, yes. I don't know. It's kind of, it's kind of murky, but I think actually like Republicans could compete there. So I wouldn't write it off at all as, oh, that'll just be two deep, dark blue seats. No, a Hispanic candidate in particular, I think could do very well there.
Interesting. Yeah, I feel like a lot of Democrats are like looking at us like we're I guess not the party because I'm not a Republican, but like we're like the side of the aisle that lacks nuance. I'm like, you guys wanted to pack the court like 2 weeks ago. What are you guys talking about? Of course, you guys are just using this shit to gain more political power. I don't trust y'all at all. Like, I don't understand. They literally wanted to expand and pack the Supreme Court to get their way a couple months ago, and now they're pretending like they don't just want to add DC to the states or don't just want to add Puerto Rico to the states because it'll give the Democrats more power. I don't trust their logic on that. I
No,
don't
I
trust
don't
them at
trust it
all.
at all. It's the same thing with like voter ID. I think that if voter ID laws would help Democrats, they would all support them, but they don't.
Mm.
And vice versa, most Republicans would oppose them. Like,
Oh, for
we
sure.
need to
For
stop
sure.
pretending that members of the political class and like politicians in the establishment actually have principles on any of this stuff. It's all about raw political power, and they'll adopt whatever argument is convenient.
Excuse you.
I'm
Oh
like an
yeah,
old man
but
now.
for
Like, we dead ass go to bed at like 10:30 a lot of the time and wake up at like
aw,
7.
that's like a nice romantic domestic life though.
We
That's
are.
awesome.
I love it. I'm not complaining.
I love
My
that for
wild
you.
child days are over.
Oh, you had a wild child days?
No, I never did.
Oh, okay. You didn't strike me that way. I got curious.
No.
Um, the left wants more power. If it's about representation, give it back to Maryland. That's what I'm saying, because Maryland is hopelessly Democrat anyways. I really don't care if you have a bunch of Democrats coming over from DC. We're already fucked. We're already fucked. And people ask me all the time, they're like, Olivia, how can you complain about living in, and it's people not from Maryland, but it's like, how can you complain about living in quote unquote liberal Democrat Maryland when you have a Republican governor? Larry Hogan is not a Republican. I will say that till the day I die. Okay. Larry, the only way he acts like this is a purple state is because he caves to the left on every single demand. If he was even a little bit Republican, or maybe, didn't play the never Trump card so hard. I mean, it's one thing to be Republican that doesn't like Trump, because there's merit to that. I'll criticize Trump all the time, whatever. But this man literally wrote in Ronald Reagan for the 2020 election. He literally voted for Ronald Reagan and was very public about it. Like, had a whole like press release that he wrote in Ronald
See,
Reagan
I
because
like
he's a more
people.
principled Republican.
I like when people are against Trump or critical of Trump from the right. Like, they're not, like, he's not conservative enough, right? He didn't bring the troops home. He didn't control the budget. Like,
That's basically my
his
criticism of him.
ATF banned bump stocks. Like, that's what I'm saying. But when it's like, oh, he's not neoconservative enough for us, and we're like, people like Larry
I'm like,
Hogan.
what?
I like Larry Hogan in the sense that he is better than the Democrat that would be in his seat instead of him.
Yeah, I mean, we had to deal with O'Malley for a while, so that really sucked. But it's such a scam to even for people to even think that Republicans have any power in this state just because we have a Republican governor. He doesn't really do shit, first of all, and he's liberal. I mean, he's basically some. I mean, I almost use neoliberal and neoconservative interchangeably these days because there's very little difference practically. But I just feel like he's kind of right in the middle there.
Yeah, I mean, they have the same thing in Massachusetts, where I'm from. Charlie Baker is a decent governor, but he's very much like a centrist or center left Republican. I mean, he's good. But there's a super majority of Democrats in the Senate, and so when he vetoes stuff, they just pass it anyway. And then he's kind of like a token.
Mm. How did he get elected? Like, does he have Democrat
Oh,
support? Because
yes,
Democrats
yeah.
love Larry Hogan here.
Democrats love Charlie Baker as well. And I actually think he's been a decent governor in a lot of ways, but he's like socially totally liberal, and then he's like fiscally like centrist, just not leftist.
I feel like I can fuck with people who are socially liberal as long as you're pretty fiscally conservative, because I feel like, I don't know, maybe I would consider myself socially libertarian is what I should say.
That's the thing. There's a big difference between socially liberal, which I associate with like SJW, and socially libertarian, which is more like live and let live.
Okay, I guess I was kind of like thinking like I guess not like classical liberal, but like the classical definition of a liberal is that not just live and let live. Like, what's the difference? I don't know the difference
So
between
that's the
classical liberal and
classical definition.
libertarian.
I just think most people who are call themselves liberals now are like progressive, socially progressive, social justice.
Yeah. I kind of cringe when people are like, oh, like I'm socially liberal, but fiscally moderate. I'm like, okay, I don't really believe you. um. Oh yeah, what state did you say you're from again?
I'm from Massachusetts and Rhode Island. Like, that's
Oh,
where I
okay.
grew up and went to high school and college, and now I live in Virginia, just outside DC.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Interesting. And I wanted to ask you this because I saw you tweet this before, and maybe this is cringe of me because I put conservatarian in my bio, but then I know you don't like that term. You think it's cringe, or at least I saw you tweet that conservatarian is cringe. What's your take? What can I call myself?
I used to have it in my bio too, but I just took it
Really?
out because people like Charlie Kirk ruined it.
Does he say he's a conservatarian?
Turning Point is all about conservatarian, but then they shill for like not libertarian economics.
That makes
So
me want to literally throw up. He's not a
he's
conservatarian. He
just
has no
a
Tarian beliefs.
he's just a boomer Trump Republican that likes marijuana and doesn't hate gays.
Yeah, doesn't hate them, but doesn't completely like them that much either, probably. He's
You're not a libertarian just if you're okay with marijuana and you don't hate gay people. And a lot of Republicans don't seem to understand that.
I hate those cringe Tarians that are just like, oh yeah, I want my gay neighbors to protect their weed plants with their guns. That's not all that it is. That's not all that it is. Are we going to talk about the ATF? Like, are we going to talk about criminal justice reform? Are we going to talk about police brutality? No, we're just talking about gay people with guns smoking
So
weed.
I want to have you on my podcast to talk about criminal justice, and like I don't think we're gonna have time to do it a lot now, but like we need to talk about that because I feel like no one has any sense about it.
Am I allowed to say that the rightly stuff for Tuesday? Am I allowed to say what we're doing?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, because isn't that not what we're talking about? I don't know. That I
No, I
forgot what
think
they.
we're gonna talk about criminal justice.
Oh, okay. So like for you guys watching, it was like the I don't know. I don't know. I think Brad's kind of like stalking me this week because there was like some weird ass coincidences. So Hannah Cox DMs me like 3 days ago and she's like, oh, you should apply for like this Hazlitt program thing. So I applied. I'm like, why is Brad's name all over this? I'm literally having him on my show in like 3 days. And then the people from Rightly Al Jazeera, they contact me. They're like, oh, we want you to come in to the studio on Tuesday to do like something about like criminal justice or whatever. Oh, you want to stay for the segment co-hosted by Brad Polumbo? I'm like, I don't know why Brad is
I'm
in
just
all my career
everywhere.
opportunities this week. Like literally, like everything I've done this week, Brad's name has been on it. So I'm really, really confused.
I'm stalking you.
Clearly, so I what explain me. So I'm not so super familiar with like the origins of FEE. I've done research on it now that I've applied and stuff, and I've talked to Hannah a little bit about it. But like what is
So
your mission in FEE? How did it start?
FEE is started as a think tank and academic organization focused on free market economics. Um, a long time ago, actually, like in the early 1900s or mid 1900s. But it is now focused on basically popularizing free market principles and arguments and lessons and beliefs on economic issues in popular writing. So we have a website that I write for that we get millions of views on every month. We do YouTube shows with hundreds of thousands of subscribers. We do books. We do student programs. I'm mostly involved on the article and editorial and website side, but it's all about not just like economics. Don't just think economy, but economics in a broad sense in terms of limited government and principles about these sorts of things that apply to lots of issues. So criminal justice, drug decriminalization, taxation, trade, immigration, lots of things. So it's not just economics specifically, but it's economic principles as applied to all sorts of public policy. And that's what we do at FEE. And we're excited that you're applying for the fellowship because we have a whole class of young people coming in who will be basically brand ambassadors and writers for us. And they're
Hell
going to
yeah.
be getting that message out there.
Hell yeah. I hope I get to be a part of that. It sounded so cool when Hannah sent it to me. I really love Hannah. I think I need to get her on my show as well. I've
Oh,
streamed
she
with
would
her
do it.
once, but it was on somebody else's show. I didn't get to have like a one-on-one
Yeah,
conversation
she's my
with
good
her.
friend. I'm sure she would do it.
So I was reading on like the Hazlitt application like site and I thought it was interesting how it's like one of the like literally like one of the requirements to apply was like you have to have an interest in Austrian economics. And I was like, interesting. I feel like that has been I keep hearing that lately, and I feel like before I even researched or studied Austrian economics, I realized I already agreed with it. But I find that interesting how a lot of libertarian or conservatarian or whatever spaces are kind of emphasizing that now, because I feel like before they there was no economic plan they really pointed to. I think it's really discombobulated and really disorganized when libertarians are just like, deregulate this, deregulate that. And I'm just like, well, what's, to somebody who's not a libertarian, they're like, what's the end goal? Like, what are we modeling this after? So I like the emphasis on Austrian economics. And the more I learn about it, the more I realize I agree with it.
He has always been focused on Austrian economics, but that's basically just an academic way of saying free market economics, a specific school of free market economic thought. But it's really cool. I mean, since I've been working there, I've read and I've quoted and written lots by Milton Friedman and Ludwig von Mises and Friedrich Hayek and all these economists who have ideas that just communicate principles about public policy that are really easy to grasp, but really illuminate a lot of the problems with our government and our system right now.
Interesting. Well, I'm excited to meet you in person for the first time on Tuesday. What the fuck? I feel we've been mutuals for like 2 years at least, I think.
Didn't we meet in person once?
No, Brad.
I swear to God we did.
We talked on FaceTime.
That might be it.
Oh my God, why are you remembering meeting me when we literally didn't?
I don't know. I met a lot of people.
Wow, I'm a little offended because before we went live, you were like, Olivia, your takes are so unique. I follow you because you're so unique and you say things that nobody else says. And now you're just like, oh yeah, I probably met some bitch.
Also, but like you're asking me to remember things that would have been from the before COVID times, and it's all a blur.
You're right. You know what? I'll give you a pass because I think our conversation was like, you were like, let's get coffee, and I was like, cool. And then we like talked on the phone, and you like had to do something else. So we ended up like not doing it. We were on FaceTime for like 30 minutes, I guess. But I am excited to meet you in person on Tuesday. I'm excited to do the Rightly video. I scrolled through the YouTube channel. I like the stuff that you guys are putting out so far. So
yeah, it's been good. I think it'll be a good show. So people should subscribe to that too. Just type in Rightly on YouTube.
Oh my God, wait. Okay, so context for this comment, the way me and Patriot J met he was my guest on my last live stream, was like a year and a half ago. We like matched on Tinder. I would like to inform everyone that Brad is a homosexual. We did not match on Tinder.
Unless you've been going on Grindr.
I'm not on Grindr.
I'm also taken, locked up a year and a half now. We just moved in together
with a man, so not me.
Yes, with a man.
Yeah,
you're cute, but not my type.
Thank you. It's okay. So we're past an hour now. Thank you guys for the super chats. Brad, do you have I already put, I see how you were like so prepared because I was already gonna put your freaking Twitter ad up there, but you have it in your freaking name already. So plug anything else. What are you working on? Where can people find you besides that?
So I'm on YouTube, Brad Polumbo, Polumbo, and then on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, Breaking Boundaries with Brad Polumbo. It's a good time. Olivia's going to be coming on soon.
Also, if you guys are wondering, this is the guy I keep making community posts for. I don't even post my own shit when I make a community post on YouTube. Literally every single day, this man is like, "Can you post this on YouTube?" So I'm like, "Fine."
Like YouTube, so my podcast does really well in the audio, but on YouTube, just no one gives me love.
I'm sorry, the YouTube algorithm really sucks. I mean, if I didn't already have people on Twitter, I would have like 50 subscribers on YouTube. It really, really is hard to get out here. And I've been demonetized. The algorithm really just doesn't like my content at all.
Of course, my Senate testimony video blew up and got like 5K, and of course they demonetized it.
Why do they demonetize that?
To be fair, the content was pretty sensitive, talking about like child suicide and stuff.
Yeah. Last question for you before we head off. Are you a Patriots fan?
No, I don't care about football. I like soccer.
Yeah, do you not just hear me say that he's gay? He doesn't care about football. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much, Brad, for coming on my show. Yeah, I will see him on Tuesday. We will post a selfie of us eating ketchup and bananas or whatever the fuck he likes to do when he's, on his lunch break or whatever. But anyways, good night.